for joining me. Today we are going to do a page through review of Shadows Over Driftchapel. Now, if you are unfamiliar, Matt Click himself, 1/4 of the gentleman from Absolute Tabletop, already did his own flip through. That is linked below in the video, as well as a link to Absolute Tabletop's storefront and where you can find Shadows Over Driftchapel. But I already promised I would do this, so this will be like an outsider's view, and I hope I can get a number of you to join in the chat. Get a couple of questions and comments about what this is, and of course along the way I will describe my impressions of it and relate it back to a previous Kickstarter and creation of theirs. And of course, as you guys know, I tend towards the glass half full. So I'm a pretty positive person. I tend not to. I'm not a reviewer, so normally I don't review things that I don't like. So yes, I very much like this product. I'm very happy to have it. This is the soft restart of into the new year of RPG with DBJ. So doing a number of things, basically going over some Christmas gifts in many ways, and just starting a new year, new attitude, all that kind of stuff. So guys, let's get into it, and let's see what we have here. Let me share my screen. There we go. All right. Now, here we are. Hopefully you guys can see what it is that I see. Just let me know in the chat if at all you can see it. For those who are listening, of course, I will be giving a verbal overview as well, just to go along with it. So you can, if you're riding the car or at work or something like that, if you got an earphone in and you just want to listen to my dulcet tones. Yes. Anyway, here we have the front page. Front cover, adventure kit Shadows Over Driftchapel, and the top half of it. When I was younger, for some reason I just had this like desire for hyper detailed and realistic artwork. Yeah. Dead Man Storyteller says, yeah, if it's crap, it's easier to just flush. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, as you guys know, I'm also a writer. So, it's like professional courtesy. If I crap on something, I expect somebody to crap on my stuff just as much. So, in many ways, take that with a grain of salt. If I'm going to spend money on something and my time and energy, I want it to be good. And I like I both like the setting of the material and the meta material, meaning like how it's put together. So I'm really impressed by that. It's one of those things like, why didn't I come up with that idea? So there's a little professional jealousy involved in it as well, but that has a little bit to do with it too. All right, so here we have the adventure kit, and what I like about their design, the philosophy of an adventure kit, is that it's the old school modules. I grew up with starting with the red box or purple box. I think it was the purple box, 70s, late 70s, and one of the things they had were a number of these like small page adventures, 8 pages, 10 pages, 15 pages. Oh, you don't see it? You only see me? There we go. How about that? That should fix the problem. Thank you, sir. Yeah, maybe I should actually click the button. All right. Yeah, okay. So one of the things that original Dungeons and Dragons used to do is they would have modules, and we called them modules, or they called them modules, so we called them modules. Anyway, the module was an adventure, and you would play that adventure. Perfect. Thanks, Vince. So we would play the Dead Man saying he sees it now too. Perfect. and one of the things in the module was you would play, you know, it would tell you how the adventure would start. You'd go through the rooms or travel to the island or go into the spaceship or whatever it may be. And you would play through it once. Maybe if you did some work, you could play through it twice. But kind of like Tomb of Horrors, once you know the pattern, it's very difficult to go through it again. And so the guys over at Absolute Tabletop created adventure kits. And so not only is it modular in terms of being able to play through it a number of times and always being surprised, either as a DM and or player, but being able to use it over and over again and adjust it for any level as well. Because most of those original modules, it would say, you know, level 7 through 9, you know, for 5 to 7 players, 7 through 9 or something like that. And with the adventure kit, they're able to really modulate that. Scott, what's going on? So another thing that I really like about this is that, like I was saying, when I was younger, I used to be into like hyper realistic like artwork design, and I've gotten into more of a splatterpunk idea, watercolor, giving me an image, but it's vague enough that I can overlay my own imagination in it. Yeah. Now Vince says, so basically a collection of dungeon rooms and encounters. Not yes, but not exactly, right? So let me page down here as we start to talk here. An adventure kit basically has a number of things that are randomized so you can layer them in, like you mentioned, like dungeon rooms and encounters and things. So there's like random rumors, random secrets, random creature creation, random, like, not, I wouldn't want to classify it as rooms, but more like locations, and adding my favorite third pillar, you know, environmental conditions, changing the environment, the sounds you hear, the sensations, and that kind of thing. So yes, very much so. Now this is called Shadows Over Driftchapel, and this is very, very much a noir, dark Victorian, Cthulhu-like setting. And it could well, I don't know about easily. It could be inserted into your setting as a location, you know, maybe far away, or kind of like Curse of Strahd, where Curse of Strahd is specifically in a different location, you know, almost like a different plane of existence. I can imagine this being put into many other people's settings if they don't want to include things such as like flintlocks or other higher tech items in their games. Hey, what's up, Azala? Okay, so I page past the credits here. Oops, sorry, I want to go back to the credits a little bit. All of these guys are extremely active and great creative guys here. Matt Click, Tim, Barker, James, John Pintar, Alexander Kostic, and all these guys, Nate Vanderzee, Sellsword Maps, and also WASD20. All these guys are very active in Absolute Tabletop and their own channels. So please check them out. Extremely creative, great synergy, I think. So Vince says, so it's basically something like a GM aid for a specific theme. Yes, it's very, in many ways, it's them saying, hey, we have this great idea for an adventure setting, and here's how you can use it without us beating you over the head and how it's supposed to be done. Yeah. So, okay, here we go down with table of contents, gives you an idea of what's inside of it. We have, you know, of course, using this book and what's included, the adventure overview, the locations, of course, the encounters. I'm going to sit here for just 2 seconds because here where it says, for example, Vince was basically mentioning, like it says locations, and it says the streets of Driftchapel, the taxidermy shop, the Rivermouth Inn, the profane chapel, the Ortis slab, and the dripping caves. And in this book, each of those locations has methods to shape them in the way you want for your adventure, your players. So, for example, if they travel in the streets of Driftchapel, there are a large number of randomized ways to change it. So it's always different. And you can all basically, if you want to include it in your setting, when they come back, when they come back, they can always revisit it again and again. Vin says, I'm making food, just played 2 hours of Mage after waking up. Yeah, that's pretty wild because Mage is a great game if with the right players, and I wouldn't want to do that just waking up. It'll really put you in the mood or send your brain in another world. All right, so of course, here we have the rules, the descriptor on how I'm using the book, what's included, such as maps, what you'll need, of course, a number of dice, and they have these little breakout boxes. For example, they mention that adventure kits are designed to be compatible with the 5th edition of the world's oldest fantasy role-playing game, but we've intentionally left out a lot of numbers to make it easy to run with your preferred system and with player characters of any level. They say, for instance, an encounter might mention making a dexterity saving throw, but leave the exact target number or DC to the GM's discretion. And I'm sure because of doing that, if you want to use it for, let's say, like, I don't know, Powered by the Apocalypse or some other game, a dexterity saving throw would just be something else. Deadman is mentioning that, is it blurry for anyone else? That I'm not certain. I haven't heard that, but it's possible. Sons of Ether. It's great. Look at I love the I love taking classic images and turning them into something else. Yeah, even Matt Click even mentions when he does his flip through that, you know, Alexander Kostic and John Pintar like got together and made a number of these images. And you know, this is like a full page art, and one of the things that happens um, when using art and doing layout, you not only need to do the layout for per page, but you also want it to flip correctly. So you want to be able to open up the book and have things seen on the left page and right side of the page. So having full page art allows you to fill a blank page, and also, you know, like kind of pulls you into what it is that what you're looking at. All right, so in this build your own adventure, and wow, that title just brings me back to the choose your own adventure books. But in many ways, this is exactly what it is. So, for example, there's this drop dice adventure generator. So you basically take all your, like a handful of your classic dice, D4, D6, D8, D12, and whatnot, and you drop them on a table, and it gives you some random things, such as you know, on a D6, it gives you the Rivermouth Inn, and what's at or inside the Rivermouth Inn, such as the Elder Thing, or Lighting the Lamps, or Call of the Idol, the Soul Survivor, and their descriptors for each one. And then there's the Profane Chapel, there's the Taxidermy Shop, etc., etc. So, you know, I'm not exactly well. I believe the idea is that you can easily use each die represents the location, not necessarily the number of options, right? So, like, because Vince mentions, like, this is weird. Why using a D8 and then have only 4 options with 2 steps instead of a D4? And so the idea is that you roll each die represents the location. So if you look at the D6, for example, is the Rivermouth Inn. That is the Rivermouth Inn. So when you look down, you roll the D6, and then you look at the 6 on it, and then it's like there's a less chance of the elder thing being at the inn or the sole survivor, but you have a greater chance of the other ones. Whereas if you roll the d10, there's less chance of, say, the roving madmen being at that location, where you have a greater chance of, lighting the lamps or the sole survivor or even a reward or such. So I think that's why what that drop dice generator idea is. I, I will say that I'm very much into like it bothers me slightly, because I like, it's like a D6. I like to have 6 options. A D10, I like to have 10 options. But of course, then you're like, well, that of course increases the number of options, and then you have to link all of those options and such. So yeah, but essentially that's exactly what it is, right? Here's a physical descriptor of what's going on. So, like, there's the taxidermy shop with the D10. There's a D4 for the streets of Driftchapel, and et cetera, et cetera. So you take the dice, you roll them out, you know exactly which locations they are. And then you have, of course, the number on the die tells you what's there. So each time it can be very different when if and or when you want your players to visit this location. And of course, using each die, when it gives you a different location. Here we are. I believe this was Nate. Matt says this is Nate Vanderzee's design. So you have like the image where you have the location, such as the Rivermouth Inn, physical description up at the top. You have the D4 for the streets. There's a D8 for the profane chapel, etc. D20 for the dripping caves, the Ortis lab, et cetera, et cetera. This is, now here's the descriptor of the setting. And the setting is like Solomon Kane meets Victorian England meets like low magic flintlock Cthulhu, right? If you're familiar with Blades in the Dark, it's very much like that as well, where there's this idea that magic is not just rare, but it's like it's corrupting, it's profane. It's a world where it's extremely humanocentric, and um, elves and dwarves and magical creatures and magic are considered evil, or at least beyond the human pale. And so, not that you can't play one of the magic races in this, you can do whatever you want in your own game, but it describes the world. So here they talk about the flintlocks, talks about the locations. This adventure takes place in the world of Gloam, a near-apocalyptic Victorian colonial-inspired fantasy realm where burgeoning technology has brought an end to old magic and ushered in an era of grim survival, black powder, and shadowy horrors beyond human reckoning. So, yeah, there's flintlock rules. Pretty simple, really. I know many people, when you talk about adding firearms to games, people get all kind of like it's like it draws a line in the sand. You might as well talk about armor class or alignment or something like that. But it's pretty simple really. And it talks of this is very flintlock-ish. So bad weather, loading your weapons, that kind of thing is terrible accuracy is a thing here. So it just gives you a bunch of details on that if you want to use them. The damage ratings aren't very high, but they have pretty good parity with most weapons in Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, I know some people think firearms are like the end all of everything, but believe me, people get shot all the time in our modern day, and they live, including children. So firearms, although very dangerous, can kill a normal human being. In Dungeons and Dragons, most human beings have no more than 3, 4, 5 hit points. So something that does like a D8 or D10, even a dagger, can kill someone immediately. It's the heroes that can survive, they're heroic, so they do heroic things, so they can be shot multiple times. There's types of ammo and a couple of pictures here: rifles, blunderbuss, pepper box, pistols, that kind of thing. Different types of shot, such as like buckshot, ball shot, spin shots, rifles, loading, and what it takes to load one, and the details involved in it. Muzzle loading weapons, black powder. A lot of times, also, Dungeons and Dragons players with fantasy, we think of modern day firearms, not the dropping the ball and pouring the powder and packing it down and all that kind of business, that kind of thing. So it even gives you a description of how to load them, paper cartridges and all that kind of business. Yeah, not a weapon for close combat. Now here's something that I especially with this book, with the Ravaged Wasteland of Cryfoth, with the Oath of the Frozen King, with the Copper Jackals, and any number of books, you really want to set up front, like what are we getting into? What are the rules? What are what's your elevator pitch? And so I like this. It's basically the 10 rules, the 10 notes about gloam and this setting and what's going on in it. So, the gloam encroaches on the 5 dominions. There's the withered road, the grand bastion of Obliette, the crown and the creed, the veiled mages of Ordisterium. Woo. Yeah, Vincent said, just cast a weather protection spell on your flintlock gun. Yeah, you'll need it, definitely. Since this is the eternally foggy and raining setting, yeah, you want to do that. And maybe Victorian is probably not correct. It's colonial, more of a Puritan, stereotypical settlers coming to meet the natives kind of thing, with their own prejudices bringing along. Yeah, that's basically what it is. The ruling regencies, the Black Crusades, the forgotten glory of the Dawnhammers, familiar forms twisted in shadow, and a plague of gas. So these are all of like the touchstones. You can read about like, this settling of a new land, and the darkness encroaches on them, and then this, it's like this bleakness, this gloom that is basically going to wipe out humanity after they've settled this location. Scott says, doesn't sound like people just cast based on the stakes. Yeah, it's more, you almost get this imagination, like there's these arrogant people who's like, hey, this is our new land and we're going to move in and this is all great. And then they saw these things, encountered these magical things, and just assumed, well, it's magic, we should kill it. And now they're reaping the air quotes rewards of the things that they've done. And now that evil is now encroaching on their lands. So here we have a map of the, you could say it's a map of the world, but I want to say it's like a map of the settlement and whatnot. It doesn't really, now mind you, this isn't a campaign setting in the traditional sense, so you're not going to get like population centers and all of the leaders and exactly who lives where. It's really up to you, but there's a number of locations that you can use. And if you really want to turn this into a long-term campaign, there's a number of names and locations and things you can use that are randomized. We have the adventure overview, because the whole point of this, of course, is the adventure. PC's got their flintlocks over their shoulders. They investigate something and they kill the evil, right? So you have the background of all the locations and, shadows and madness, and gives you a little, the seaside town of Driftchapel, where all of this takes place, and some of the adventure elements and a bunch of the conflicts, such as like a dark idol and the cult of Kuatu, a number of the encounters. And it gives you, along with the locations, there's also the encounters with some of the creatures. and so you can mix and match where the PCs encounter them, and it drives them towards basically as like inquisitors or investigators, to solve the mystery. Number of NPCs that they have and the information that they know. So let's go a little faster here. Blight of the Deep Ones. Very, very Cthulhu-ish. There's a number of quests and twists. And some of these tables have multi-roles. Like this is a multi-role table. So it says like throughout this book, you'll find roll tables with several columns. For instance, if you see a die symbol like this, where it says D12 to the third power, or D12, what is it? Not sub. I forget where the small number appears above. Anyway, it means you should roll D12 3 separate times. So in here you have a D12, so you can get, it basically gives you a quest or a complication. For example, if you rolled 6s all the way across, there's an influential politician puts you on a quest to escort someone or something, and a complication is something about this isn't quite legal. So it's superscript, yes, subscript and superscript. Thank you, Deadman, who's always there to correct me because I'm not very smart. So these are great ways to get people involved in something like that, whether it's like a shady contact or a beloved relative, maybe a wealthy merchant or a respected scholar, and they put you on a quest to go here to this location, meet up with the other PCs, and then I would say hilarity ensues, but if you like to go mad or, clawing at your own skin, I suppose that would be funny. There's other kinds of twists that you can add to it. There's adventure motivations. Some players, I don't know why, but they're like anti-players. It's like they resist following the plot. It's like, hey, I got this adventure, and the PCs are always trying to find ways not to go in the adventure. So these are great ways to do that, whether they're stranded or hired to be there, researching prophecies, lifting a curse, that kind of thing. So you can shape it for who they are. Now, this is one of my favorite pieces of art / maps. It's the town of Driftchapel. And Matt wanted the map to look, the town of Driftchapel to look like a claw reaching out of the darkness. And it very much looks like that, almost like a claw or a hand in a swamp. You can see there's like there's almost there's these like roads and rivers, and everything's like on the side of, it just reminds me of just being on the side of like swampy, dark waters. Seems like it's always nighttime for some reason, even though it isn't, of course. Thick fog. You just get this image of, it's like almost an urban adventure. Yeah, Vincent says there are only a few responsibilities for players, and one of them is to, quote, find a reason to go on the adventure. Oh, that's a pet peeve of mine. It's like, hey, if I come to the table with an adventure on the island, get on a damn boat, right? That's it. That's all you got to do. Find a reason to go. Like, my character doesn't like water. It's like, whatever, dude. Like, don't play then. Find another table to play at. You know what I mean? That's the footstep of a Tarrasque. That's, yeah, it's pretty cool. I love things that are thematic, and having these, like, it just reminds me of these people being in their homes. I'm sure they don't want people adventurers walking around the dark streets knocking on their doors or something. And so there's like ships and boats, very colonial / Victorian era, pulls you in. Here we have the locations where we can pick up like the streets, and there's some sights, sounds, and sensations for each location, and you can mix and match them. We have a street generator. Blah, words. The street generator has some buildings. Descriptions of some of the buildings, some of the blocks, in terms of walking around and what you see. Some are dilapidated, some are filled. There's the profane chapel in the Rivermouth Inn, and you can give players some details into that, especially if you're into like playing like Call of Cthulhu, the actual role-playing game Call of Cthulhu, and its various iterations. this is a good way to, maybe you want to throw it into your 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons if that is something that you like. There's the Ortis Lab and the Dripping Caves. In this game, Ortis are the only ones allowed to practice like alchemy and magic. So yeah, Vince says it would be cool, so cool if you could get an app with the PDF which rolls these random tables for you. That sounds like something you're an expert at. But yes, you're absolutely correct. It would be cool to just like get a PDF where you can just click it. You know what I mean? Like there's like a little like click button at the top where it says like D8 or something or D12, and you just click it and it just boom pops in a random thing for you. Yeah, that would be awesome if you could just get the PDF, put it on your phone or iPad or something, and just click it, give it to the players, or show it to the players. Here we have the taxidermy lab and some descriptions of like cutting up these crazy wild things out in the unknown. Yeah. Vince says that would be quite a bit of work, but doable. I can imagine. I think that might be like a next step, very very much so. Yeah, I could see that. And he says, of course, Vince says would make it much easier at the table. I definitely agree. There's the deep ones, the lighting the lamps, and if you notice underneath each of these encounters, there's a word where it says like combat. There's another one over here where it just says skill challenge. So, for example, under the deep ones, of course, there's combat. The deep ones are basically like some weird submersible, aquatic creatures that the PCs may encounter. Now, of course, you do when you see here, there's no stat block, and you'll see why. And then of lighting the lamps, there's a skill challenge, and like I'll go down at the bottom here. It says pitch black. If the lamps are extinguished, each adventurer becomes blinded. The adventurers have disadvantage on all checks that rely on sight, and the shadowlings have an advantage on all attacks against them. The magical darkness persists for 1 to 4 rounds. And so, for example, the players may encounter like, hey, we have disadvantage and the shadowlings have advantage. Maybe we can relight the lamps. You know what I mean? So that can be a challenge in and of itself, where one player is just like, hey, I just want to kill things. And other players are like, dude, we need to light the lamps because, that kind of thing. Vince says, maybe I will once I join a Critical Hit Publishing. Yeah, thanks. You know what? Hey, I guarantee you it's the thing that people didn't think they want. The clickable like random tables in their modules, their adventures till they get it. You know what I mean? I absolutely agree with you. There's dark deeds. Kuatu's command: pry the eyes from their heads so they can see the truth of Kuatu. That's pretty nasty. What's another one? Drag them away to proliferate a twisted new species. So it just gives some motivations for the creatures. There's lamp lighting checks, such as a wisdom check to time your actions between gusts of wind, charisma check to bolster allies and rally Portia. So there's NPCs that can get involved in this, and there's the roving madman, soul survivor, and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, this is pretty cool. Like you can really you get the idea that the PCs are like, maybe they're like exorcists or mercenaries or some kind of clergy, maybe, or all of the above, and they're investigating these dark things that are in this town or around this town, or maybe in the waters, or it could be on a ship that docked. A ton of artwork. You can see the tentacles along the edges of the pages. I like that. I really like that. Then there's the climax of the cult of Kuatu, wielding the dark idol, hopeless cosmic horror, and what to like. Basically, here's the last combat and how you can shape it to what you want. And bam, here's an image of the idea of what would be going on, which player character are you? You know, tricorn hats. You know, is the person with the flame a priest or a wizard? Is this other the woman over here in the top hat with the wide brim? You know, is that a fighter or a ranger? Is she a bard? Doesn't really matter. It's more about the theme and fighting off the dark ones. So here we have the non-player characters, a description of who they are, probably where they're located, in random, and then some secrets that they have. And Matt even mentions in his flip through that they each have a secret, and none of the secrets conflict with a previous secret. So all of them could be they could be lies or truths based on your own setting. Yeah, pirate pirate PCs, absolutely pirates could be a great thing. Hey, they maybe they're just passing through and then they get caught up in this this dark thing with cults and idols and stuff like that. Finch Turner, the cultist, and Portia Brown, the lamplighter. Here we are going around harbors. What does it say? She harbors a strange fascination with the monsters of Driftchapel. Peter Stone, a survivor. Used to be a dawn hammer. I guess these dawn hammers used to go out into the wilds and fight the evil that was out there in their own closed-minded, racist kind of way. Agnes Wood, the Ortis. If you take a look at the artwork, you can see there's like a blending of cultures here. So it's not New World 13 colony settler specific. Yeah, I like the artwork. Vince says he likes the artwork too. I like it too because uh, it's it's got some color to it. I was afraid that it would just be like shades of gray, but it's got some color to it, and it's also very dark, um, almost like ink splatter. Like there's like the evil is like dripping off of you. You can't really like wash it off. It looks stained in a way. Nothing seems clean, so I like that as well. Really pulls you into it. Um, Here we have, for example, let's talk about the shadowlings, aberrant minions. It gives you like appearance, behavior, some buffs, possible buffs such as stealth, shadow stepping, and down here in the stats, because of the bounded accuracy of Dungeons and Dragons, you can really create this and make this any level. And bounded accuracy, for those you guys already know, but bounded accuracy basically means there's a bottom end and top end that most die rolls will fall into that doesn't go very far outside of it, right? So at a particular level, there's only a minimum roll and a maximum roll that 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons really falls into. So a stat block doesn't really need to be very big because, for example, for stats, it says here, Shadowlings have 5 hit points, armor class 12, and a roll bonus of +2. Now, if this is an 11th level to 16th level encounter, you can just give them, they do 2d10 damage. But if it's only like 1st to 4th level, you can just say they do 1d6 damage, et cetera, et cetera. You can like basically guide it up and down. You can turn the dial up and down on each of the things, and just make it tough enough for them if they're higher level or lower level without making them extremely, like, instead of doing like the CR, you can just say, well, I want this because this is my CR. Well, what the hell is this? Tricorn hat, the lamp, and then this inky black shadowling. Yeah, that's nasty. Red eyes. Vince says, Scott says it kind of evokes old world art. Yeah, I like that because because it evokes this old world art. You can kind of imagine yourself in it. And Vince says, laughs. He says, the belt looks exactly like another artwork I know. I think the Pathfinder Alchemist. Yeah, yeah. There's a Pathfinder. I'm going to go back up to because that will it come up? I think it's one more you were talking about. We'll go back here. Come on. show up. Come on, Blip, pop in. There it is. There it is with the glowing bottles. Yeah, yeah, Vince. Yeah. It's the I've got potions strapped on me like grenades. Yeah, I like that. So yeah, the stat blocks where he talks about simplified stat blocks, whether it's the hit point totals, the damage, the bonus rolls, those kind of things. Um, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can just, and of course some of these are not intent to be, some of the encounters aren't intent to be like very tough until you get to the very end. So armor class starts to increase, damage levels start to increase, the number of creatures you involve in it can start to increase. um, Endless monsters. What does it say? The toolkit at the back of this book includes ideas for even more thematic monsters, as well as a slew of generators for creating your own unique enemies. Yeah. The PC dreads being knocked prone. Avatar of Quatu. Yeah, I don't know how you're going to fight that. It's pretty nasty. Resolutions and rewards, whether it's and repercussions and retaliation. I like that. I like the alliteration, like resolutions, rewards, repercussions, retaliations, and all those things in there. So repercussions, it's the idea that yay, we succeeded, and everyone's just like, we didn't like you being here anyway. Stupid adventurers stopping evil. Who do you think you are anyhow? You know, um, different types of weapons and things you can find. Give out some treasure, social rewards. Yeah, the fifth edition isn't really big on social rewards, but yeah, definitely something to add in here, especially if your group really loves to engage the NPCs, loves to do a lot of talking, a lot of social interactions. Madness effects. This is definitely part of the world of suffering madness, and there's escalating madness. So they have a table where you roll a die 10. Says for more minor short-term effects, roll a die 10. For truly terrifying, more permanent effects, roll a die 20. So, the first 10 are pretty minor. 11 through 20 is pretty nasty. Adventure oddities, gloam effects. The gloam is this like creeping darkness on the outskirts of this world, and you can have it invade, whether you want it creeping down the streets or seeping under the doors or something like that. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. He even mentions this one, number 8. A toy from your childhood rolls. Try to highlight this. A toy from your childhood rolls towards you from out of the darkness. It appears exactly as you remember it, save for a set of bloody fingerprints. Pretty nasty. I like that. I love things like that. Images in mirrors, feeling like a hand on your shoulder, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Just feeling sick, maybe vomiting. Ooh, nasty, nasty, nasty. Thematic phrases, like see things here: writhing darkness, heavy downpour, furious sea, gibbering madness, gaslit streets, shadowy horrors. Um, Vince says the art is very similar to the game The Darkest Dungeon. I may have seen some of that artwork. So I'm going to agree with you. Very much reminiscent of like the art's coming out of the darkness itself or carved from it. So I really like that. A bunch of random tables for hazards, set dressings. For example, here we have a roving mob of armed townspeople out for blood. Stealth check to slip by unnoticed. Or nauseating magic from the dark idol wafts over you. Constitution saving throw to avoid an unnatural sickness. So very much so. This what I love about the adventure kits, it kind of hits on something that's close to my heart, that cinematic environment, that third pillar thing. So I love having not only fighting townsfolk or fighting creatures, but you also have things around you that are affecting you, and giving those hard decisions to the players. Hey, I can make another attack on the enemy, or I can run over to the side and knock over the black light that's summoning the creatures. You know what I mean? Do I want to fight outside in the downpour and the rain where I can't see, or do I want to lead the creatures inside the inn where there's innocent people, right? Encounter escalation. such as like the fight disturbs the subterranean monster, it bursts forth. Enemies rise as undead husks and attack. A fire rages through the battle. Yeah, fighting inside the inn because you want it to be outside the rain. Somebody knocks over a lantern, now the place is on fire. I love those kind of things. And choices. Put everything in the hands of the players. Give them tons of choices. Make it hard for them. You know that kind of stuff. Items and loot, trinkets. Done. Tons of trinkets. A brass pocket watch frozen at 7/3/13. Don't know what that means, but yeah. Loot, hunting knives, all that kind of stuff. Deck of cards inlaid with silver featuring risque Baroque artwork. Yeah, tons of stuff. You can more flavor for PCs who are not into this kind of setting. They're just like, I hate flintlocks in my role playing. I just want swords. You know what I mean? And so you do those kind of things. Give them some things to latch onto if they are not into what your setting is about. Yes, Scott poses hour, minute, second. Yeah, but what does the 7/7/13 mean? Oh, it would be funny if it said 13/13/13 because there is no 13th hour, but yeah, it'd be kind of weird. Major location: streets of Driftchapel, Ortis Lab. Minor locations such as like a boat launch. Here we go: Dawnhammer Memorial, Ancient Lich Yard, Seaside Shack, General Store, Tackle Shop, Flint Shop, Mayor's Estate. Yeah, very much a wow, my brain just shut down. Very much a dockside adventure. Absolute. Vince says Googling it only shows Bible verses. That's what I was wondering. Like, is it a Bible verse? Is it from a video? Is it something like maybe they just picked it randomly and are making me think about something that's not, it's nothing that's there. But yeah, I love the idea of like dark seaside. I just get the smell of like dead fish, that overwhelming scales and shellfish and boats and like, barnacles, growing up the sides of dockside piers and that kind of thing. There's some mundane locations: dead end alleys, outhouse, sewer outlet, market stall, deserted plaza. Rickard says, what was that number again? Yeah, I'm not, like I said, we could be going down a rabbit hole, which might be the whole point. You know what I mean? Throw that in a game and have the players are just like, what the hell does this mean? Is it page 7, the 7th spell with 13 hit points? I don't know. Sight, sound, sensations. Again, alliteration and also a number of random rolls. Sounds. Dark water churns through the canals, bubbling and belching. I like the idea of PCs traveling on like small dinghies or boats down dark canals. Monster generators. Here we go with here's some more artwork. Monster type and appearance. The type of creature. So you roll percentile dice. Maybe it's a fae. Maybe it's a dragon type or a humanoid or a monstrosity. Maybe an ooze. Yeah, Vincent says page 7, paragraph 7, word 7. Yeah, a code. Look in a book to look up exactly what it is. The letter 13. Yep. Oh man. So random creature gives you a description of what that creature would look like within this setting. Monster behaviors. What does the creature want? Maybe it wants to, it listens to a master. Maybe it wants to kidnap you. Just look at this thing. Thematic monsters in the world of Gloam. Deep One Sea Lord, a dire bat, battle forged ogre, which is what this picture is. Quatu Cult Caller, calculating monster DCs, and then quick monster stats. So you can roll a D8 if you want to. You can come up with a threat level, the average hit points, average armor class, average roll bonus. So the roll bonus is like if you want to give it skills, to hit bonuses, saving throw bonuses. This is what it is. The threat level, whether it's a minion, skirmisher, vanguard, or a nemesis, and the number of hit points it has. You can modulate the damage by party level. So party level of 5th through 10th level against a skirmisher does about 11 points of damage, or 2d10. Kind of goes up. Rickard says, I can definitely see what you mean with the Darkest Dungeon art style. Yeah, I absolutely, if I'm thinking of what I'm thinking of, what you guys are thinking of, because I'm just thinking of that dungeon inside the monster. I can't remember. Sorry. Monster buffs. So these are abilities you can add to any kind of random creature you want to create, whether it has a multi-attack or defense, whether it has regeneration or some kind of resistance, maybe flight or a weakness, or maybe has a swim speed. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rickard. Posting a picture in the Discord. By the way, those who come in on this video later, yeah, join the Discord. Because there's plenty of brilliant people, me not included in them, who are part of the Discord, and great people to be part of. Got a question? They will definitely answer it. Skill challenges by ability, skill challenge difficulties, and thematic skill challenges in this world. I think sometimes we tend to think of skill challenges as being completely separate than combat, but it's the same thing, right? It's a die roll plus a bonus or some kind of modifier, minus or plus or minus a modifier. And skill challenges could be just as important as making that attack roll to allow it to change the course of what's going on. So for example, like strength challenge with busting through barred doors, dexterity challenge, lighting lamps to quell the gloam. There's intelligence challenge to translating archaic eldritch runes, charisma challenge, convincing the constable to aid in your investigation. So definitely thematic. There's a trap generator. Basically, I think trap is air quoted because these are things that the PCs could get themselves come across that isn't a creature, but they have to avoid to, not get caught in. For example, maybe a trap is a naturally occurring hazard. It could be an intricate arcane trap. It could be commissioned by a particularly skilled trapsmith. Saving throws, what type of, whether it's charisma, strength, wisdom, intelligence, dexterity. Trap consequences, whether, the damage type, lists whether it's acid, poison, necrotic, radiant, the condition you suffer if you fail, deafened, incapacitated, grappled, paralyzed, or petrified, that kind of thing, fall prone. Trap save DCs and attack bonuses. For the thematic traps, where there's a sludge pit, a nightmare engine, collapsing roof, tripwire bomb, dexterity saving throw to avoid a black powder blast, pretty nasty, toxic fog emitter, a rune scrawler. No! If you're in the comic books, Venom's going down my throat. Please, Venom, don't go down my throat. NPC generators, some names, some first names and surnames, personalities, NPC appearances. And what I like about something like this, like an NPC generator, it's very thematic. So you're not going to get like a happy-go-lucky, halfling or something like that. You're going to get very much a very much colonial, dark colonial, witches and witchcraft kind of thing. So I really like that. Vince says, I like the idea of basically just increasing the damage for higher levels so that PCs can't just ignore some enemies or hazards. Absolutely. And of course, the way the adventure kit runs, that's exactly what it's for, right? You get a higher level group, you just increase the damage or the difficulties or the conditions that they encounter, and it just makes it better. NPC gear, brass telescopes, ornate sword cane, tarnished chainmail, copper flask, NPC strengths and drawbacks, good Samaritan, maybe a silver-tongued diplomat. Drawback might be stuck in their ways, maybe they're terrible with money, owes favors, compulsive liar, kind of thing. NPC secrets, of course. It's great to play an NPC with a secret because it can, as a game master, even if the PCs don't guess the secret, maybe something the PCs say or do will lead the NPC to kind of give away their body language or their verbal intonations to give away some kind of secret, and maybe the PCs latch onto it. It could be a red herring as well. Yeah, Scott Post says get them stuck in traps when it's very inconvenient. Yeah, maybe the enemy pushes them towards traps, or the PCs are stuck between, instead of a rock and a hard place, it's the monsters in a trap. It's like, do I back into the trap that I know is there? Do I try to avoid the trap and get the creature stuck in it? That kind of thing. And the trap doesn't necessarily need to be quote unquote a trap. It could be, uh, a big storm is coming and it's splashing water across the docks, and if you get close to the edge you'll get washed over. It could be an abandoned building, and if you go up the steps will collapse. You could be running across rooftops and you could fall through the roof. It could be horses out of control and there's a wagon running down the road and it's coming. The wild, manic horses are running through the party, and they could get, trampled by it or hit by it or something like that, or dragged by one of the wagon wheels or something. Yeah, you could have anything. And then of course this is a very Cthulhu-ish, so there could be like darkness reaching out from the walls or under the doors, and no one wants to get close to it, but then there might be creatures pressing against them. So I very much love using that. um, a vast and loathsome shadow. This was part of the Kickstarter, a story that involves one of the NPCs and why they're in this place, how they got there, and some of their background. And so there's a little bit of fiction. So if you really love fiction, this was part of the Kickstarter, and it's included here. We're almost at the end here. Matthias. Oh, and Vince says the picture of Darkest Dungeon is in the Discord now, by the way. And there's Matthias standing on the cliffside with the white-capped waves splashing in. This is the Gloam Gazetteer. He was saying some people call it a gazeter. I love the gazetteer. I love the pronunciation of that. Even if you do pronounce it a gazeter, but I believe like that T-E-E-R sound is like gazetteer. I like that personally. Ink. Spilled ink, darkness spilling down into Driftchapel. There it is. That's kind of cool. And the world of Gloam, even the word Gloam, you can see it like splattered on the end of it, like someone was trying to write this, and then maybe they were a tentacle wrapped around their throat as they laid down the last bit of ink for this world map. And this goes into the wider world of Gloam. So if you really like this style of play, it tells you each location. So for example, this is the Crown Lands, and inside the Crown Lands, it gives you an individual such as the Queen and a number of these locations such as the Oubliette, the Port of Sutherland, the Last Woe, and the Withered Road. So there's like the Crown Lands, and it gives you some images. There's even like airships, not just airships, dirigibles or dirigibles, dirigibles, whatever, stuck to just the spires. The Barony of Strand and locations, the Baroness of Yesenia Foxglove. Of course, we have Driftchapel itself and the locations outside of it, the Toppled Spire, Erwile Bog, Kieranstead, the Mornwall. Eggfeld Isles and Lady White Hand. Yeah, that's nasty. All right, the Blackfield. So we're almost here at the end. The Blackfields. You don't want to go there. The County of Thurland. So yeah, this really goes deep into if you really want the PCs to explore, or you yourself want to have a campaign that explores these darker areas, and the PCs are really into, like, you know, that Call of Cthulhu, uh, Darkest Dungeon style of gaming. This is great, great for that. Margrave of Hildebrand. Carvan. Here's some more images here. Towers and spires, settlement generator, of course, at the end. Love the random tables. Settlement generator, adventuring location generators, just in all those various locations. A silvered axe in a dark tree. Settlement name generator. That's pretty cool though. Prefixes and suffixes. You know, yawn something, or ends with the word hearth or haven or barrow. Um, ditch ends with the word keep. I like that. Vince says this style is very popular currently. Blades in the Dark for RPGs or Dishonored for games are good examples. Yeah, definitely Blades in the Dark is very much like that. You get the idea that you're playing. Yeah, you're playing in a bounded region, I guess. You know, you get the idea that you really can't travel much further than the outer boundary, because there's, you know, there's things out there that you can't um, you can't investigate. I'm just gonna say goodbye, babe. Have a good one. All right, baby. Get out of here. All right, here we go with the cultist summoning the dark one. Definitely have to have. Well, Vincent says there is a Call of Cthulhu game as well, of course, where, oh, Call of Cthulhu Victorian colonial style. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, there's Deadman, of course. Yeah, there's several Call of Cthulhu. First of all, there's Call of Cthulhu. There's different iterations. I think it's up to 7 iterations of it, and then there's different people who have like come in to create, because Cthulhu is open source. The background of using Cthulhu is open source. Someone even did a Kickstarter a couple of years ago called Thule, Thule, which was a 5th edition version of Call of Cthulhu for a medieval setting. Here we go, the Kickstarter, all the Kickstarter backers. There's a ton of them, rightly so, right? There's let's see if we could find some of us that are in here. We got Baron Cantrell. Whoa, there we go. We got Baron right there. I know we've got some other shit. Of course, Alex here, and right up. Oh shit, whatever. Losing control. There we go. We got Alex here, part of a critical hit. Ton of people, tons of people. Yeah, it goes on forever. So a Cthulhu Tech. Yep. Here's the PC game. There's me, right up in here. Right at the, of course, every time I click it, it wants to jump. There's me. Bunch of people. So yeah, a lot of people supported this. So again, down in the doobly-doo. Down below, there's Matt Click's version of the flip through. So please go to that. I'm sure he did a much more professional outlook, considering the fact that, you know, I don't know, he helped write it. He was a project director of it. So yeah, but please check that out after you check this out, if you have, or I don't know, hell, just go directly to his, whatever. Put together great. There's an open gaming license, of course. Have to put that in there for legal protection. And bam, the adventure kit, the back page of the book, modular. Vince says seems like a great book. Yeah, it's just I like the idea of a book that is modular enough that you know what this book is about, but it's modular enough that you can really shape what it is, right? Like, for example, while we were going through it, I was really describing, let me get out of here. Stop sharing all this stuff. All right, so let's go back to my terrible face here. All right, so in my mind, as I'm flipping through it, I'm getting all these ideas like Vince brought up being pirates. You know, maybe the PCs stumble across this place known as Driftchapel, and they can't navigate their way out of it. Right? They're stuck here. They land. The people don't want to talk to them. There's dark things going on. Uh, Navigation wise, every time they leave, they come right back to the place, and so it very much reminds me of like Curse of Strahd, where you have a location that's, you know, surrounded by this darkness, and maybe the PCs have to investigate. I love, you know, you guys know me, hell, Cinematic Environs, right? It's the idea that the world, it's rainy, it's foggy, it's dark, storms are coming by, there's electrical, you see like the heat lightning in the sky, like I said, the people close their doors, there's creeping darkness in it. So I love the theme of, you know, of the docks and fish and things of that nature around, the smell, everything just being worn down, both emotionally, you know, people's, you know, outlook on life just being beat down, as well as the PCs just being like confused as to what the hell's going on. And especially having players that really love horror and horrific themes. So in summary, I very much like Shadows over Driftchapel. Even the title of this book, Shadows over Driftchapel, completely completely tells you what this book is about, right? Is there are these shadows over this area, the shadows, this darkness, this creeping evil over Driftchapel. You know, drift like driftwood, being on the being near the sea, and of course the word chapel, cultists, priests, faith, maybe loss of faith, or people who are trying to hold on to their faith. Um, uh, a lack of celestial contact, but of course there's also chapels in terms of like altars and evil and that kind of thing. Joseph Keenan says in post-apocalypse environments, it's a ton of flavor as well in play. Yeah, and um, so anyway, that's the complete review. Um, um, Joseph Keenan even mentioned the other day, because we went through Blasphemous Abominations, The Lich, which is from us at Critical Hit Publishing, was talking about like using a sci-fi version of a lich, like radioactive or like diseased, or even, you know, ooze created, you know, whatever. So that's definitely in the book, like slightly sci-fi flavor. So yeah, that's it. Guys, tomorrow we're going to go over Salt in Wounds. Salt in Wounds is another setting where a Tarrasque ravaged the world. You know what? This was a Christmas gift. Yeah, this was definitely a Christmas gift. My background setting, Christmas gift. Yeah, my wife, my family is really like they're supportive of what I do. So it took them a little while, but now they're just like, hey, if you're gonna bother doing it, do it right. So that's really cool. Yeah, and look, I'm a graybeard. I gotta have like the sweater vest. You know, all I need is like a. It's like one of those it's one of the, all I gotta do is walk around like a coach and tell you young folks what to do. Give me 20. Scott Post says, hey DBG, where are you with jungles and swamps? Well, when you haven't seen me, I've been writing. Subterranean and jungles and swamps and forests is actually all being written at the same time, because as I'm writing, I'm being distracted over into something else. So that's how I control my distractions. Jungles and swamps is probably, I'm going to say 2 months out, maybe 3. I know that's a bit of a distance, but my goal is to finish the entire Cinematic Environs series and have it put into one big book. So by the end of the year, that's my goal. Swamps and jungles will be put together. Subterranean is going to be put together. Cityscapes is one book, et cetera, et cetera. It shows excuse it. I was gonna say say like the fleece you're sporting. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's yeah. It wasn't something that I thought about doing. Like, hey, I'm gonna get myself a T-shirt or something. And my wife is just like, you're always getting stuff for yourself. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, it was. Vincent says, "Gotta never trust a smiling game master T-shirt." Yeah, I was gonna get a bunch of those shirts, and my wife is like, "You're always getting stuff for yourself," because I'm sure someone in the family actually pr- created this. They didn't order it. They actually have a machine that actually prints this stuff out. So it's kind of cool. Here we go. Yeah. Scott Post says, cannot wait for the omnibus. But I'll get the Swamps Jungles PDF in the meantime. Yeah, it will come out. That's my goal. I'm pushing forward to it now that I've mentioned it. Now that I've already created myself a timetable. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you know what? There's this is my that's my winter theme. I've got a dark forest theme. I've got my spray painted brick theme. It's really cool. Anyway, thanks guys. So yeah, that was a flip through review of Shadows over Driftchapel. Love the guys over at Absolute Tabletop. They allow me to, blast them sometimes with some of the things that I do. Very creative people, very positive. One of the largest Facebook groups with nothing but positive interactions. Crazy, but cool. And very creative guys there. Matt Click, Tim, James Kearney, Barker, all that kind of stuff. So check them out. Yeah, I don't get any kickbacks, but I love the idea of what they've created, the meta idea of an adventure kit where it can be modulated. Check out Oath of the Frozen King, which was their first kit. This is their second one. And just using bullet points or roll tables to give you an idea, to pull you into the theme. I like that. Yeah, David says you're Cyberpunk Alley. Yeah, I would pull it down right now. It takes a little bit of work to get it done because they're all hanging behind me. They're just folded over one over another. So yeah, yeah, I love Cyberpunk. Anyway, we'll get back to that. But for right now, this is like my soft reboot into the stream, into doing live streams and such. So yeah, we'll get back into like Monster Mondays and Future Fridays and all that kind of business. Vincent says I definitely have to build an adventure kit for Astrocitus. Astrocetus. Yeah, it's I think that's absolutely what's possible to do with it. I can't imagine they're working on a sci-fi themed fifth edition called Harbinger. I can't imagine that they're not working on an adventure kit for Harbinger. Whether it's like creating planets, moons, or rather not planets, it would be moons around the Harbinger, whatever. Anyway, guys, got to get to work. Got to go in. They're not bringing us in early because the busy season has passed. So that's why I'm able to go back and do this again. So yeah, I'm back to doing my live streams. Probably mid-November is probably when I will absolutely positively not be able to do it. And of course I have vacations during the year, so that's when I won't be doing live streams. But other than that, guys, everybody have a good day. Joseph Keenan, good to have you back, and yeah, do some PA stuff. Yeah. PA, do you mean like Powered by the Apocalypse, or like do you mean like I don't know, public announcements? Yeah. Thanks for having me back. We are in an immediate society, so a lot of times when people go away, it's just like, I don't know who the hell that guy is anymore. Post-apocalypse. Yes, I love post-apocalyptic settings and themes. So I very much do. I think the adventure kit idea is great for that because you can have a ton of like random, I don't know, airplane stuck inside of a building, gas station with I don't know, a satellite stuck on in the roof or something, empty trucks. Like, I love those kind of things because you can always have random, you're like, I don't know what to put here. Yeah. He said, PA, we're both Philly boys. Oh man, I haven't been back there in a while. Have not been back. But yeah, Illidale. Yeah, I miss it. Guys, everybody, have a great one. Uh, just thank you for giving me the energy to do what I do. For those who are new to me, just check out everything below, hit the links, look at the reviews. Guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Salt in Wounds. I will explain what the hell that is. It involves a Tarrasque and a big giant city built around a Tarrasque that just is on the edge of waking the hell back up. So we'll enjoy that. That's been a long time coming, and I know a bunch of people in the Absolute Tabletop group. We're looking forward to that. So they'll look for that too as well. So Rickard, Joe, Vince, everybody, Deadman, Scott, guys, Azala, everybody, have a great one. I will see you later.